My mom siphoned every dollar I sent home to bankroll my sister's lavish lifestyle, so I cut them off cold, and now their perfect world is unraveling. But what will they do to drag me back in? I'm standing in the middle of a dusty parking lot outside the Rusty Spur, a dive bar on the edge of Black Ridge, Montana, staring at my phone like it's a live grenade. The screen glows with a photo that rips the air from my lungs. My parents, my sister, her slick husband, and their kids, all grinning poolside at some fancy resort in the Bahamas. My sister, Claire, who's supposedly fighting for her life in a hospital bed, is sipping a mocktail, her pregnant belly glowing under a tropical sun. My money, 7 years of my blood, sweat, and combat pay, bankrolled this lie. And I'm the idiot who fell for it. Black Ridge is a nowhere town, a speck in the Montana prairie where the wind howls across endless fields of golden wheat, and the Bitterroot Mountains loom like silent judges on the horizon. The air smells of dry grass and diesel from the grain trucks rumbling down Highway 87. It's the kind of place where folks cling to family like it's the only thing keeping them from being swept away by the vastness. I grew up here, in a split-level house with peeling paint, where the winters are brutal and the summers bake the earth to a crisp. The stars at night are so bright, they feel like they're accusing you of something. And right now, they're accusing me of being a damn fool. I'm Ethan Walker, 32, a U.S. Marine Staff Sergeant in Force Recon. I enlisted at 18, straight out of Black Ridge High, not because I was running from anything, but because I wanted to test myself against something bigger than this windswept town. My dad, Tom, ran Walker's Hardware, a cramped store on Main Street that sold everything from nails to snow shovels. Mom, Linda, was a part-time librarian, always fussing over her book displays like they were her second family. My sister, Claire, 3 years older, was the town's golden girl. Homecoming queen, prom queen, the kind of person who could charm a rattlesnake. Me? I was the quiet kid, decent at wrestling, better at running the dirt trails behind our house, where the sagebrush scratched my legs and the wind whispered secrets I couldn't quite hear. I joined the Marines because I wanted to be more than Black Ridge's second-best walker. Force Recon was my crucible, grueling weeks in the swamps of Camp Lejeune, learning to move silent as a shadow, to survive on nothing but willpower. Earning my recon tab felt like etching my name into the granite peaks back home. My first deployment to Somalia was a baptism by fire. 120-degree heat, sand in every crevice, and the constant threat of an ambush. I thrived on it, found purpose in the chaos. But back home, things were unraveling. Dad's store was bleeding customers to the new Home Depot in Billings, and Mom's hours at the library got slashed. Their calls started, carrying a weight heavier than the Montana wind. "Might have to sell the old Chevy," Dad would mutter. "Property taxes are killing us," Mom would sigh. I heard the desperation, even across 7,000 miles, so I started sending $700 a month from my Marine pay. I lived lean, barracks life, mess hall chow, no need for fancy stuff. They raised me. It was the least I could do. The prairie stretched endless around Black Ridge, dotted with rusted silos and weathered barns, the kind of landscape that makes you feel small but stubborn. I pictured my money keeping the lights on in our old house, where the furnace groaned like it was begging for mercy every winter. 2 years into my second deployment, Claire married Ryan, a guy who called himself a real estate visionary. He had a slick smile and a habit of name-dropping clients who sounded made up. Mom called me on a crackling satellite line, saying Claire and Ryan were drowning in baby expenses. Diapers, cribs, formula for their newborn, Ellie. I bumped my support to $900 a month, imagining it buying bottles and blankets, keeping their little family afloat. By my third deployment, I'd made staff sergeant, so when Mom hinted at more unexpected costs, I upped it to $1,100. Her emails were like warm hugs through the screen. "Ethan, you're our rock. We'd be lost without you." Dad's texts were short, but hit hard. "Proud of you, son. Thanks for stepping up." It felt good, like I was anchoring them from halfway across the globe. I missed too much over those years. Claire's wedding, where she wore Mom's old lace dress, Ellie's birth, then her brother Caleb's. My best friend Nate's funeral after his fishing boat capsized off Flathead Lake. I'd send gifts, stuffed animals, toy trucks, but I wasn't there. The Montana stars were my only link to home, shining just as bright in the African desert, reminding me of nights on our porch, listening to the coyotes howl. I told myself my sacrifice mattered, that my money was keeping the roof over their heads, the heat on through the blizzards. After a 20-month deployment that felt like a lifetime, I got approved for extended leave. I was coming home to Black Ridge, my first real break in years. My cousin Luke, a grizzled crab fisherman who smelled like brine and motor oil, suggested a homecoming shindig at my parents' place. Their house sat on a low hill, surrounded by wheat fields that swayed like an ocean under the big sky. The porch sagged, but the view was pure Montana. Rolling plains, distant mountains, and a sunset that bled red and gold. Mom was thrilled, planning a spread of pot roast and huckleberry pie, talking about how they'd been waiting to celebrate my service. I could almost taste the home cooking, feel the embrace of family after years of sand and sweat. 2 days before the party, my phone rang. Mom's voice was shaking, barely audible over the static. "Ethan, honey, it's Claire. She's in trouble. Something with the pregnancy, maybe eclampsia. We're driving to OHSU in Portland tonight. She might lose the baby." My stomach dropped. Claire was 7 months along with her third kid. I'd read about eclampsia in a first aid manual, serious stuff, life or death. "Go be with her," I said, swallowing my disappointment. "We'll reschedule when she's okay." Mom's voice cracked with relief. "You're such a good brother. Oh, one thing. The bank flagged this month's transfer. Can you sort it out? We need it for hospital expenses." I promised I would, then called Luke to cancel the gathering. He suggested a low-key night at the Rusty Spur instead, a bar where the jukebox played George Strait, and the walls were plastered with old license plates. "Just a few beers with the boys," he said. "Better than moping in a motel." I agreed, needing something to fill the void. The Rusty Spur was a time capsule, its wooden floor sticky with spilled beer, the air thick with the scent of fried onions and cigarette smoke from the patio. Fishing nets hung from the ceiling, a nod to the nearby rivers, and the windows framed the dark silhouette of the Bitterroots against a starry sky. I met Luke and 2 high school buddies, Jake and Matt, guys I hadn't seen since we were sneaking beers behind the grain elevator. We swapped stories, laughed about old pranks, and for a moment, I felt like I was 18 again, before the Marines, before the world got complicated. Luke was scrolling his phone, half listening to Jake's story about a botched construction job, when he let out a low whistle. "Damn, Ethan, your folks are living it up. That Bahamas resort looks like something out of a movie." He turned his phone toward me and my world tilted. There on Instagram was my family, Mom, Dad, Claire, Ryan, and their kids, lounging by a turquoise pool, palm trees swaying in the background. Claire, who was supposedly hooked to monitors in Portland, was radiant, her pregnant belly glistening with sunscreen, a mocktail in her hand. Ryan sported a Rolex that cost more than my truck, and the kids were building sandcastles with a resort nanny. The caption read, "Day 3 of our family paradise. Blessed Tasna, Bahamas vibes." My parents, in crisp resort wear, grinned like they'd won the lottery. Another post showed a candlelit dinner, Ryan toasting a game-changing deal with a $200 bottle of wine. The timestamp was yesterday. No hospital, no eclampsia, just my money, my sacrifice, funding their tropical fantasy. My recon training kicked in. Stay calm, assess the threat, control the situation. My face stayed neutral, but inside, my heart was pounding like an artillery barrage. "What the hell is this?" I asked, my voice low, deliberate. Luke's eyes widened, realizing he'd stepped on a landmine. "I thought you knew, man. I mean, aren't you on leave? Figured you couldn't make the trip." Jake and Matt stared at their beers, sensing the shift in the air. I took Luke's phone, scrolling with the precision of a sniper lining up a shot. The posts went back months, planning for this annual getaway, shopping for resort outfits, booking flights. My mom's caption from March: "Counting down to our island escape, 92 days to go." Annual. This wasn't a one-off. This was a tradition, paid for with my combat pay while I was dodging IEDs. I handed the phone back, my movements slow, controlled, like I was handling a live explosive. "It's fine," I lied, my voice flat. "Let's just enjoy the night." But my mind was in overdrive, replaying every call, every email, every tearful plea for help. 7 years, $108,000. All those nights I went without, eating expired MREs, sleeping in tents that smelled of mildew, believing I was saving my family from ruin. And they were sipping cocktails on a beach, pretending I was too busy to join them. Back at my motel, a rundown place called the Prairie Inn with flickering lights and a view of a gravel lot, I pulled out my laptop. The Montana night was quiet except for the hum of crickets and the occasional semi roaring down the highway. I dug into my bank statements, my fingers moving with the focus of a mission briefing. The pattern was clear as a thermal signature. Every May or June, a big withdrawal. $2,000, $4,000, $6,000. Always tied to some emergency. Furnace broke, medical bills, tax lien. And every summer, Instagram posts of beaches, resorts, Claire's kids in designer swimwear. I checked Mom's emails, searching for emergency. Dozens popped up. Car repairs, vet bills, a leaky roof. All lies, timed perfectly with their vacations. I drove to my parents' house the next morning, the key still on my ring from before I enlisted. The house smelled of old coffee and Mom's lavender candles, but the kitchen counter was a goldmine. Mail piled high. Tuition bills for Claire's kids at Black Ridge Academy, a private school where tuition ran $82,000 a year for 3 kids. Statements for summer camps, piano lessons, even a freaking pony riding program. Mom's notebook, tucked in a drawer, was labeled Ethan's Fund. Pages detailed how my money paid for Claire's lifestyle. $3,000 for a family yacht day. $1,200 for Ellie's ballet recital costumes. $5,000 for Ryan's business conference in Aspen. A thank you card from Claire read, "Mom and Dad, you're saints for giving my kids the best. We owe you everything." They'd taken credit for my sacrifice, painting themselves as generous while I was sweating in a desert. I sat on their sagging couch, staring out at the wheat fields. the wind bending the stalks like it was trying to tell me something. 7 years, $108,000. I'd lived like a monk so they could play high rollers. My phone buzzed. Mom, texting about Claire's condition. She's stable, but we need that transfer fixed. Hospital bills are piling up. I almost laughed. Hospital bills at a 5-star resort? Those piña coladas must be pricey. I didn't respond. Instead, I drove to the bank, a small branch where the teller knew my name. I froze my accounts, canceled the auto transfers, and set a $100 transaction limit. Then I texted Mom, "Dinner at your place Sunday, 6 p.m. Everyone needs to be there." Family business. She tried to dodge, saying Claire might still be in the hospital. I shut it down. Sunday, 6 p.m., no excuses. The week dragged like a forced march. I spent it gathering evidence, scrolling through years of Instagram posts, Cancun, Hawaii, the Maldives. Always the same. My parents and Claire's family, living large while I was overseas, eating dust. I saved screenshots, bank records, even Mom's notebook pages, building a case like I was prepping for a tribunal. Black Ridge's plains stretched around me, the mountains watching, as I wrestled with the betrayal. I wasn't just angry. I felt like a chump, a mark, the guy who'd been played for a fool while thinking he was the hero. But recon taught me one thing. When you're ambushed, you don't freeze. You counterattack. Sunday, 6 p.m. I pulled up to the house, the sky bruised purple with an oncoming storm. I wore jeans and a flannel, but pinned my recon tab to my jacket, a quiet reminder of what I'd earned while they spent my money. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Mom, Dad, Claire, Ryan, and their kids, Ellie, 9, Caleb, 7, and Mia, 5, were there, dressed in casual but pricey clothes, like they'd just stepped out of a Patagonia catalog. The dining room smelled of pot roast and anxiety, the windows rattling as the wind picked up outside. Mom rushed me with a hug, her perfume cloying, her voice too high. "Ethan, sweetheart, we've missed you so much." Dad offered a handshake, his grip weak, eyes avoiding mine. Claire gave a tight smile, one hand on her belly like it was armor. Ryan, all fake charm, clapped my shoulder. "The man of the hour. Good to see you, Marine." The kids stared, curious but shy, like I was a stranger who sent them Lego sets at Christmas. "Let's eat first," I said, keeping my voice steady, like I was briefing my squad. Dinner was torture. Mom babbled about the weather, Dad grumbled about the store, and Claire talked about her pregnancy like nothing was wrong. Not a word about hospitals or eclampsia. The kids chattered about their fancy school, their drone club, their ski lessons. I chewed my roast, tasting nothing, my mind locked on the folder of screenshots in my pocket. As Mom served huckleberry pie, I leaned back, my chair creaking. "So," I said, casual as a sniper lining up a shot, "how was the Bahamas?" The room froze. Mom's pie plate wobbled. Dad coughed on his coffee. Claire's fork clattered to her plate. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows like it knew what was coming. "What?" Mom whispered, her face pale as the Montana snow. I pulled out, my phone, slow, deliberate, and turned it to show the Instagram post. Claire by the pool, Ryan with his Rolex, my parents toasting in paradise. "Looks like a hell of a hospital," I said, my voice low, controlled. "No eclampsia, huh? Just mocktails and sandcastles." Mom's mouth opened, then closed, like a fish gasping on the riverbank. "Ethan, honey, I can explain." I cut her off, swiping to the tuition bills. "No need. I get it. 7 years, $108,000 of my combat pay went to private schools, yacht rentals, and your little island getaways. I swiped again, showing Mom's notebook. You even kept a ledger. Ethan's fund. Real creative. Claire's eyes widened, darting to Mom. What's he talking about? You said Ethan was on a classified op, that he couldn't come home. And there it was, the lie unraveling. They'd played us both, but I was the one bleeding cash. Dad tried to jump in, his voice gruff. Son, we were just helping Claire's family. You were gone. You don't know what they needed. I turned to him, my stare cold as the bitterroot winter. Don't know? I've been sending 60% of my pay while living in tents, eating MREs older than your grandkids. I missed Nate's funeral, Claire's wedding, everything. Don't tell me I don't know sacrifice. Claire's face twisted, her voice sharp. If you're so worried about money, maybe you shouldn't have spent your life playing war games. Get a real job, Ethan. The kids flinched, Ellie clutching her napkin. Ryan looked like he wanted to bolt. I stood, slow, my chair scraping the floor. The storm outside roared, matching the fury building in my chest. Here's the deal, I said, my voice low, steady, like I was giving a mission brief. The money stops. Today. Accounts are locked, transfers canceled. Try to touch my funds, and I report it as fraud to the bank and the MPs. You've had $108,000. That's your severance. Mom started sobbing, big crocodile tears, the kind she used to guilt Dad into anything. Dad slammed his fist on the table. You can't cut us off. The kids' school, their future. Not my problem, I snapped. Ryan pulls 6 figures when he's not tanking his visionary deals. Your tax records show $132,000 2 years ago. Figure it out. Claire's face went red, her voice a hiss. You selfish bastard. My kids need those schools to compete. You want to ruin their lives? I met her eyes, unflinching. They can go to public school, like I did. Like you did. They'll survive. Mom, desperate, blurted out. Claire, honey, we'll figure it out. Ethan's money was just helping us cover what we've been giving you. Claire froze, her anger shifting. Ethan's money. You said it was your savings, that you were sacrificing for us. The truth hit like a flashbang. They'd lied to her too, painting themselves as heroes while I was the secret ATM. Ryan stood, muttering, Kids, let's go. Claire shot me a look, not apologetic, just cold. You should have told me, she said. Would it have changed anything? I asked. She didn't answer, just stormed out with her family. Mom tried one last guilt trip, sobbing about Dad's heart, their age, how they raised me. I shrugged. You raised me to be honest. Too bad you didn't follow your own rules. I held up my phone, showing the tuition bills with my name on them. Contact my CO with sob stories, or turn the family against me. And these go to everyone. I'm done being your cash cow. I walked out into the storm, the wind whipping my jacket, the mountains silent witnesses to the wreckage. I drove back to the Prairie Inn, the neon sign flickering like my trust in my family. For the first time in years, I saw them clearly, not as victims needing my help, but as liars who'd played me for a fool. I wasn't just angry, I was free, but freedom comes with a cost. The next day, my phone lit up with texts. Dad, your mother's a wreck. Is this how we raised you? Aunt Karen. Heard you're struggling, Ethan. Talk to someone. Claire. Ellie's asking why Uncle Ethan hates her. Her school's dropping her over tuition. Happy now? I didn't respond. I knew the storm was just beginning, And in Black Ridge, storms don't blow over easy. What happens when the family you bled for turns out to be your biggest enemy? I was about to find out. The Montana sky was a bruise, heavy with the threat of rain as I drove away from my parents' house that Sunday night. The wheat fields stretched dark and endless, swaying under a wind that carried the sharp bite of an early fall storm. My hands gripped the steering wheel of my beat-up Ford pickup, knuckles white, but my mind was calm, eerily calm, like the moment before a firefight when you know exactly where every enemy is positioned. I dropped a grenade in the middle of my family, and the fallout was just beginning. 7 years, $108,000, and a lie so big it could choke the Bitterroot River. I wasn't just cutting them off. I was rewriting the rules of who Ethan Walker was. But as I pulled into the Prairie Inn, the neon sign flickering like a bad omen, I knew they wouldn't let go without a fight. In Black Ridge, family doesn't just break. They claw, they scheme, and they drag you down with them. The motel room smelled of stale coffee and cheap air freshener, the kind that tries to mask despair but just makes it worse. I sat on the lumpy bed, my laptop open, staring at the screenshots I'd shown at dinner. Mom and Dad toasting in the Bahamas. Claire's kids at a private school that cost more than my annual salary. The ledger labeled Ethan's Fund, like I was some kind of trust fund for their fantasies. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Texts from Mom, Dad, even my Aunt Karen, who I hadn't seen since I was 15. Mom, you've broken my heart, Ethan. How could you do this? Dad, we raised you better than to turn your back on family. Karen, heard you're struggling, son. War changes people. Get help. I tossed the phone on the bed, letting it vibrate itself to death. They were already spinning a story, painting me as the unhinged Marine who'd lost his way. Classic Black Ridge move. When you're caught, play the victim and rally the town. I leaned back, the springs creaking under me, and stared at the water-stained ceiling. The wind howled outside, rattling the window like it was trying to get in. I'd faced insurgents, sandstorms, and 18-hour patrols, but this betrayal hit harder than any bullet. It wasn't just the money. It was the lie that I was saving them, that I was the hero holding the family together while they sipped mocktails and bought $4,000 watches. My recon training taught me to stay focused under pressure, but right now, I felt like I was drowning in the Bitterroot, the current pulling me under. What do you do when the people you die for treat you like a mark? I didn't have an answer, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going back. The next morning, I woke to a voicemail from my commanding officer, Captain Reyes. Walker, your mom called the base. Says you're having a breakdown, threatening the family. I know it's BS, but handle it. Be back by the 15th. Reyes was a solid guy. Seen me through 2 deployments. Knew I didn't crack under pressure. But Mom's move was bold. Calling my CO to spin a story about PTSD. That was a low blow, even for her. I texted Luke, my cousin, the only one who'd been straight with me. Meet me at the Rusty Spur. Need to talk. Luke was a crab fisherman, weathered as the river rocks, with a habit of saying what everyone else was too scared to. If anyone could help me navigate this mess, it was him. The Rusty Spur was quieter in the morning, the jukebox silent, the air heavy with the smell of last night's fries. Outside, the prairie stretched flat and golden, the Bitterroot Mountains a jagged line against a gray sky. Luke slid into the booth across from me, his flannel stained with engine grease, a coffee mug in his calloused hand. Your folks are stirring up a shitstorm, he said, cutting straight to it. Told my mom you're off your rocker, that the Marines broke you. Half the town's buying it. I sipped my coffee, bitter as my mood. They're good at playing victims. Always have been. Luke leaned forward, his voice low. There's more, Ethan. I didn't want to pile on last night, but Ryan's business? It's a house of cards. He's been fleecing clients, promising big returns on shady land deals. Your parents' money, your money, kept it afloat. I felt that cold recon focus snap into place, like lining up a target in my scope. How bad is it? Luke sighed, rubbing his beard. Bad. He's got lawsuits coming out his ass. One client's threatening to go to the feds. Your folks were bailing him out, telling everyone it was their investments, paying for Claire's kids' fancy school. I leaned back, the booth creaking. So my combat pay wasn't just funding vacations. It was propping up Ryan's con. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice steady but sharp. Luke met my eyes, unflinching. I didn't know it was your money, man. Thought your folks had some side hustle or a pension windfall. They're slick, I'll give 'em that. The revelation hit like a flashbang, bright and disorienting. My parents weren't just liars. They were enablers, funneling my money to keep Ryan's scam alive. I thought of Claire's kids, Ellie, Caleb, and Mia, oblivious in their $200 sneakers, thinking their grandparents were saints. I thought of Claire, who didn't even know I was the one bankrolling her life. Was she a victim too, or just another player in this family charade? I needed answers. But first, I needed to protect myself. I spent the afternoon at the bank, double-checking my account locks, setting up alerts for any unauthorized access. The teller, a high school classmate named Sarah, gave me a sympathetic look. Heard about your homecoming getting canceled. Family emergencies are rough. I nodded, keeping my face neutral. Yeah, rough. That night, my phone lit up with a text from Claire. Ellie's asking why Uncle Ethan hates her. School's threatening to drop her over tuition. You okay with ruining a 9-year-old's life? I stared at the words, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Classic Claire. Go for the jugular. Make it about the kids. I didn't respond. Instead, I drove to Luke's place, a trailer parked on the edge of town where the prairie met the river. The Bitterroot flowed dark and swift, reflecting the stars like a shattered mirror. Luke handed me a beer, and we sat on his porch, the air cool and heavy with the scent of wet earth. They're not going to stop, you know, he said. Your mom's already telling people you owe them, that you're abandoning family duty. I took a long pull from the bottle. Let 'em talk. I'm done being their ATM. But the next day, the game changed. I was grabbing coffee at the Gas and Go when my phone rang, an unknown number. I answered, expecting a telemarketer. Instead, it was Ryan, his voice smooth as ever, like he was pitching a timeshare. Ethan, hey, it's me. Look, I owe you an apology. I had no idea your money was funding the kids' school. Your parents said it was their savings, some investment they'd cashed out. I let the silence stretch, a tactic I'd learned in interrogations. He kept going, nervous now. Claire's a wreck. She's pissed at your folks, but also at herself for not questioning it. We're pulling the kids from Black Ridge Academy, enrolling them in public school next semester. I just wanted you to know we weren't in on the lie. I leaned against my truck, the gas pump clicking in, the background. You never wondered how 2 retirees afforded $82,000 a year in tuition? I asked, my voice low. He sighed. I should have. My business. It's been rough. Your parents' help let us keep up appearances. I see now how screwed up that was. I didn't trust him. Ryan's charm was like the Montana wind, smooth until it knocked you over. But his words planted a seed of doubt. Was Claire really in the dark, or was she playing the victim too? I told him, "Take care of your family, Ryan. The right way." Hanging up, I felt the weight of uncertainty. In recon, you trust your instincts, but family muddies the waters. I drove back to the motel, the prairie stretching wide and empty, the mountains watching like they knew something I didn't. The next morning, I got a call from the motel front desk. "Mr. Walker, your mother's here. She's upset." I could have said no, let her stew in the lobby, but I'd learned in the Marines that you face threats head on. I walked downstairs, the carpet stained, the air thick with the smell of burnt coffee. Mom sat on a faded couch, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, her performance Oscar-worthy. She was dressed in her Sunday best, a floral blouse and pearls, like she was auditioning for the role of grieving mother. "Ethan, honey," she said, her voice trembling, "I had to see you. I called every motel in town." I sat across from her, my face a mask. "What do you want, Mom?" She leaned forward, her eyes glistening. "I know you're angry. We should have been honest about your help. But Claire's family needed it. Ryan's business is failing. The kids' school is their only shot at a good future." I cut her off, my voice steady as a sniper's aim. "You lied for 7 years. Told me you were losing the house, that you couldn't pay bills. I sent $108,000 while eating MREs in a war zone, and you spent it on vacations and private school." She flinched, but recovered fast. "It wasn't like that. We were giving them opportunities. You've always been so strong, Ethan. Claire's not like you. She needs help." I almost laughed. "Help? You mean my combat pay without my consent?" She tried a new angle, her voice soft, pleading. "Ellie's school is dropping her by Friday if we don't pay. Caleb might lose his robotics club. Your father's blood pressure is through the roof. Is this worth his health?" I leaned back, the couch creaking, and let the silence stretch. The wind whistled outside, a low moan that matched the storm in my chest. "You're good, Mom," I said finally. "First the kids, now Dad's health. What's next? The dog needs surgery?" Her face hardened, the tears vanishing like a switch had flipped. "You've changed, Ethan. The Marines made you cold, selfish." I stood, towering over her, my voice low but firm. Finding out my family used me as a cash cow made me see who you really are." I offered to help with necessities, not to fund Claire's McMansion dreams. She grabbed her purse, standing with a huff. "When you're ready to be family again, you know where we are." I watched her go, her heels clicking on the linoleum, and felt a strange calm. The prairie outside was still, the storm holding its breath. But the real storm hit 2 days later. Luke called me at dawn, his voice tight. "Ethan, you need to get to my place. Now." I drove across town, the sunrise painting the wheat fields gold, the air crisp with the smell of dew. Luke was pacing his porch, his trailer glinting in the early light. "Your mom's playing dirty," he said, handing me a stack of papers. "Found these at my mom's house. She's been talking to your folks." The papers were a shock. A legal document, drafted by a shady lawyer in Billings, claiming I owed my parents $120,000 for loans they'd given me over the years. The dates and amounts were fabricated, but they'd forged my signature on fake promissory notes. It was a desperate move, a Hail Mary to force me to keep paying or face a lawsuit. "They're saying you borrowed the money for personal expenses," Luke said. "They're telling everyone you're dodging your debt. That you're unhinged from PTSD. My blood ran cold, but my training kept me steady. I scanned the papers, the forged signatures sloppy but convincing to someone who didn't know better. This wasn't just manipulation. It was a calculated attack. The kind of thing that could ruin my career if it reached the wrong ears at the base. "They're not this smart," I said, my voice low. Luke shook his head. "Ryan's behind it. My buddy in Billings says he's been meeting with this lawyer, trying to cover his own ass before his clients sue him." The pieces clicked. Ryan, drowning in lawsuits, needed my money to keep his scam alive. My parents, desperate to maintain their image as generous grandparents, were willing to throw me under the bus to make it happen. I drove to the base's legal office, a small building near Great Falls, the prairie giving way to strip malls and fast food joints. The JAG officer, Captain Lopez, was a no-nonsense woman who'd seen every kind of family drama. I laid out the evidence: bank records, screenshots, the ledger, the forged documents. "They're trying to extort me," I said, my voice steady but burning. Lopez raised an eyebrow, flipping through the papers. "This is fraud, Staff Sergeant. Bold, stupid fraud. You want to press charges?" I hesitated. Charging my family would mean torching any chance of reconciliation, but letting them skate could embolden them. "Not yet," I said. "I want to confront them first." Lopez nodded. "Smart. Get it on record. I'll draft a cease and desist to scare them straight." That night, I called a family meeting at the community center, a squat building by the river where the town held everything from 4-H meetings to funerals. The air smelled of pine and damp earth, the bitterroot flowing dark and quiet outside. I invited Mom, Dad, Claire, Ryan, and Luke, plus Aunt Karen to witness. I wanted this public, undeniable. They arrived, tense, Mom clutching her purse like a shield, Dad's face red with anger, Claire avoiding my eyes, Ryan fidgeting like a cornered coyote. The kids weren't there. I'd insisted they stay home. The room was stark, fluorescent lights buzzing, folding chairs creaking as we sat in a circle like some screwed-up therapy session. I stood, my recon pin glinting on my jacket, and held up the forged documents. "You tried to sue me for $120,000 I never borrowed," I said, my voice slow, deliberate. "Forged my signature, lied to the town about my mental health, called my CO to get me locked up." Mom gasped, theatrical as ever. "Ethan, we'd never—" I cut her off, tossing the papers on the table. "Save it. I've got the originals, plus bank records, your ledger, and every Instagram post from your family vacations. 7 years, $108,000. You used me while I was dodging bullets." Dad stood, his voice shaking. "You owe us, son. We raised you, gave you everything." I stepped closer, my eyes locked on his. "You raised me, to be honest. Too bad you forgot how." Claire's voice was small, almost a whisper. "I didn't know about the lawsuit, Ethan." I swear I turned to her, searching her face. For the first time, I saw something real. Shame, maybe, or regret. Ryan jumped in, his charm cracking. "Look, man, the lawyer was my idea, but it was to protect the kids' future. My business is tanking. We needed my money," I finished, my voice cutting like a blade. "You needed my money to keep your scam alive. And you," I turned to my parents, "played along to look like heroes." Mom sobbed, but Claire stood, her eyes blazing. "You should have told me it was your money, Ethan. I thought they were helping us. I'd never have let this happen." I wanted to believe her, but her words from Sunday, calling me a wannabe hero, still stung. "Would it have changed anything?" I asked. She didn't answer, just looked away, her hands shaking. The room was silent, the river's murmur the only sound. I took a breath, my voice dropping to a near whisper. Here's what happens now. I'm sending a cease and desist. Try to sue me, forge my name again, or spread lies about my mental health, and I press charges for fraud. The MPs are ready, and so's my lawyer. I paused, letting it sink in. You've had $108,000 of my blood and sweat. That's done. Figure out how to live without it. Mom collapsed into her chair, crying. Dad muttered something about disowning me. Ryan grabbed Claire's arm, pulling her toward the door, but Claire stopped, turning back to me. I'm sorry, Ethan, she said, her voice breaking. I didn't know. It was the first crack in her armor, and for a moment, I saw the sister I used to know, the one who'd sneak me cookies when Mom wasn't looking. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. I walked out into the night, the river glinting under the stars, the mountains standing sentinel. The storm had passed, leaving the air clean and sharp. I drove to Luke's, needing his blunt honesty to ground me. You did what you had to, he said, cracking open a beer. They'll come around, or they won't. Either way, you're free. Free. The word felt like the first clean breath I'd taken in years. I thought of the kids, Ellie, Caleb, Mia, now in public school, their world shifting. I thought of Claire, maybe starting to see the truth. I thought of my parents, downsizing, Mom working full-time, Dad eyeing a job at the feed store. They were learning to live without my money, and I was learning to live without their lies. The next week, I moved into a small cabin on the edge of Blackridge, a fixer-upper with a view of the river. The walls were bare, the floors creaked, but it was mine. I enrolled in cybersecurity courses online, a new mission to complement my Marine career. I started running again, the dirt trails winding through sagebrush, the mountains steady in the distance. One evening, as the sun sank red and gold over the prairie, I got a letter from Claire. No sob story, no guilt trip, just a note in her messy handwriting. Ethan, I'm ashamed. I should have asked questions. We're figuring it out. Public school, cutting back, no more lies. I hope one day you'll forgive me. Enclosed was a drawing from Ellie, a crayon sketch of a Marine with a big smile, labeled Uncle Ethan. I pinned it to my fridge, not because I was ready to forgive, but because it reminded me why I'd fought so hard, to protect what mattered, even when it hurt. I stood on my porch, the river singing, the stars bright as truth. The family I'd bled for had betrayed me, but in cutting them off, I'd found something better. Myself. The prairie stretched wide, whispering of new beginnings, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was home. But Blackridge is a small town, and secrets don't stay buried. What happens when my parents try one last desperate play? I'd be ready.